Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. When it comes to President Donald Trump, there are strong and very polarized opinions on both sides. From the left, there are calls for impeachment, and one of the people leading that charge is Tom Steyer, and he's our guest here this morning. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Adam, thank you for having me.
So explain for us, what is the basis on which you would like to impeach President Donald Trump?
Well, Adam, when we think about impeachment, we think about it in two basic ways. One, has this president met the criteria set out in the Constitution for impeachment? And twice, including most recently yesterday, we've gotten a series of constitutional legal scholars to give their opinion and put it on the web so Americans can see that this president has clearly met the criteria for impeachment. Just to give you a quick sense, the two most obvious out of the 9 are the emoluments clause, which is it is absolutely forbidden for a president to accept any payment whatsoever from a foreign government or from our own government while he's in office, which this president does every single day in multiple ways through his real estate and business interests. Secondly, this president has clearly obstructed justice in his attempts to prevent any investigation of his coordination prior to his election with the Russian interference in our democracy. So the first question is, has he clearly met the criteria for impeachment, which if you sit through what we put on the web, you will understand it isn't close. And then the second question is it urgent to get this lawless president out of office? And if you just look at the last couple of weeks with his administration separating children from their mothers at the border, something that people describe in international law as meeting the definition of torture, when you see what's going on in terms of his alienation of our NATO allies, his trade war that is escalating, and his insistence on meeting with Vladimir Putin, possibly alone with no other Americans present, you understand there is a real urgency to what this president is doing. He is attacking our democracy. He is threatening the safety of the American people. And so it is clear that both he has met the criteria, and it is very important to get him out of office.
From a raw political perspective, if you're a progressive, what's the point of removing President Trump if you're just going to get President Pence?
Well, this is not a partisan effort, Adam. We are not choosing a president. We're removing a president who's attacking the rule of law and our democracy. So we know that if Mr. Trump is removed, the next president would be a conservative Republican from Indiana. But that would be a gigantic step forward in terms of preserving the democracy, protecting the American people, and making a statement to ourselves and the world about what our basic values are.
So safe to say you're more comfortable with President Pence than you would be with President Trump. Other than the president, you're probably the wealthiest person to sit in that chair. Obviously, this is a free country. People can do what they want. But is it fair that someone can get an idea like this, let's impeach the president, and then just spend millions of dollars to achieve that end and perhaps be successful maybe?
There is no doubt that our democracy has been overwhelmed by money. And if you look at what's happened since Citizens United, which is the Supreme Court ruling that basically let corporations take over our democracy, it has been something which has been appalling and threatening and corrupting, no question about it. And I'm aware in what we're doing that I have an ability to do things that most Americans can't. And as a result, what our organization does and what I do is basically grassroots. We go to the American people. We're the largest group of people going directly to Americans to try to get them involved in the political process, to get them registered, and to get them participating at the polls. And if you look at what we're doing in this impeachment petition, we're trying to create and empower a voice for the American people. We've got 5.5 million people who've signed our petition. If you look at the polls, between 42 and 49% of Americans believe this president should be impeached and removed from office. So what I'm trying to do is enable that voice to be heard because no one else will do it.
I'm curious, why focus on, I mean, and clearly impeachment, you're saying it's not partisan, but unfortunately this country breaks down on partisan lines over everything, right? And we're going to see if that goes forward, if the Democrats, say, retake Congress and want to move forward with articles of impeachment, it's going to divide the country again. Why focus on convincing, I guess, center-left people that it's time to impeach, rather than perhaps going after that malleable middle and perhaps doing something even more modest, say, let's hold on to the rule of law, or you should trust in the Mueller investigation, smaller little building blocks of what you're after, rather than such a big tent and perhaps controversial aspect of impeachment?
Well, I mean, in terms of, let's just talk for a second about the Mueller investigation. The Mueller investigation is a special criminal prosecution. It deals with 2 of the 9 issues, the criteria on which Mr. Trump can be impeached. It specifically doesn't deal with the emoluments clause, for instance, which is not in a criminal statute, but is specified in the Constitution as being something for which a president should be removed from office. So, in fact, it's important for us to tell the most important truths to the American people. It's important for us to deal with it and not to pull in our horns because we're worried that if we tell the truth, it will offend someone. I think when you talk to the American people, overwhelmingly across the board, they believe this democracy has been taken away from them by corporate interests, and that neither party is telling them the truth about what's going on and is dealing with their issues, their needs, and their hopes.
If and when the president tweets about you, do you see that as success, or is that an indicator that he views you as a pawn that he can use to rile up his own political base?
Well, first of all, the president has tweeted about me, so I can look, to a very large extent, we are trying to go directly to the American people. And whatever Mr. Trump has to say, he is a great master of getting people upset and getting them off their game and getting them to pay attention to him, which is really what he loves to do. And what we're trying to do is something very focused, so it really isn't going to affect me one way or the other.
You said you're not running for office in 2018, and you're really not going to talk about anything beyond November of 2018, so I won't really go down that route with you. But let's speak theoretically. We've seen, I know, right, but this is a different question, though. Are you too wealthy to run as a Democrat? I mean, it seems like the party is moving in such a grassroots fashion, but is someone like you who's really reached the top, you're not that average person anymore. Shouldn't this party be refocusing on those regular people?
Look, what I think the elephant in the room is in American politics is a vision, a positive vision for how we're going to succeed together in the 21st century. And the real problem that we have is that vision hasn't been put out there. So I don't think we should be asking what is somebody's background or, who are they? We should be asking, how are we going to proceed? And this is something that the Democratic Party is going to have to wrestle with. Democratic voters are going to have to listen. And actually, that is what we're missing. I view us as having a failure of imagination. No one has come forward and explained in the 21st century how the American experiment continues, how we stand up for freedom and justice in the 21st century so that we succeed in the American experiment, because we've always had that vision. And we don't now, and that's why the Republicans have been able to succeed without any vision, without anything positive to say, because we've gotten too far away from the people and their needs, and we're not putting America into the context of a prosperous, just future. That's what people should be paying attention to.
Will we see you back here in 2019?
Regardless of what happens on November 6th, 2018, which is Election Day, I will be working full-time for social justice in the United States. We have been in New Hampshire on the ground on all 17 campuses in the state, including the 5 community colleges, for 5 years. We're not going to give up on New Hampshire after November of 2018 for sure. So you will definitely see me back here.
All right, Mr. Steyer, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Adam, thank you for having me.